Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day-to-day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Simplify to Scale show. Today, you are in for a treat, of course, because you know I have the most amazing guests ever on. But that being said, Amelia is joining me today to talk all about wealth. And we're talking about wealth beyond your business, which I think is so incredibly important and something that's super interesting, which I'm curious of your perspective on, Amelia. But I feel like when we start a business, we are so focused on just making money. It's like revenue. And then at some point we get to the point and we realize, wait a minute, it's not really revenue that's important, it's profit that's important. And then we shift our focus and we're like, okay, now how do I actually focus on making profit in the business? And then you reach this other almost like identity evolution or point in the business where you start thinking beyond just what money you can make in the business. And you start thinking about actual wealth and how can money make money and what are other ways to be thinking about this beyond just, you and your expertise and your service and your offers and what you do being the thing that translate into money and ultimately wealth in your life. And so that's so much of what I want to dive into. But before you even answer that, tell people who you are. Tell people
I'm like,
what you do.
Jumping at the bit. Let's go.
Let's go.
My name is Amelia Misenheimer. As you said, I am so excited to be here. My background is in real estate. So I'm a licensed realtor in the state of New Mexico. I started investing in real estate in 2010 and I sold my brick and mortar business. I had a real estate brokerage and property management firm. We managed over 450 properties. So I've worked with hundreds of investors on the real estate side. And obviously you see people have like one or two rentals. And then I had these clients who'd have, 70, 80 rentals. And it was just exposed me to different kinds of wealth. So I sold my businesses because I got married and my husband's military. So we moved to England and, so I had this huge, massive life change, identity shift that happened with all of that. And I was like, okay, I've got all of this life experience and wisdom that I've seen from other people and estates and taxes and all of that. I'm like, how can I use this in a online format, if you will, to help? And that's kind of where I've gotten into this wealth consulting. And now I'm biased towards real estate. I really like it, but I also know it's not the entire conversation. Like there's a lot of different ways to build wealth. There's a lot of different pieces. There's different pieces at different times. There's different capacities you have at different times of your business career. So really working with people to kind of take that whole comprehensive wealth picture. And you nailed it when you said, there's revenue and then you go about profit. But even if you're making great profit, profit isn't wealth. And that's the thing when people talk about business. And as if you're starting out in business is obviously a different set of problems than when you're more stabilized in business and, making money. But it's you've got to get that wealth to your personal wealth because that's where your legacy is. That's where you pass it to the next generation. That's where you might donate, to a university or hospital or whatever it is. It's that personal wealth. It's not taking money out of your business per se. So navigating that and what you want to do with it is so important because it is so easy to get in that hamster wheel of revenue of where you're just going and funnels and clients and chasing and, you're just making money and you look up and you've had a killer year and you might be bringing home all this money, but then you're like, what do I do with it? How do I make it work for me? How do I grow this? How do I make this last to the next generation? How do I set my kids up? All of those pieces. So it's always fun to talk about it because it's so personal. And I think that gets lost in the conversation too. I have a thing against the old white men financial advisor people that always tell you what to do and all. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it that way. So I really try to talk about wealth and we can do this in whatever way you want. and whatever you believe in, whatever and whatever aligns with your risk tolerances. Some people are like, YOLO, like, let's put it all in crypto. And other people are like, no way, not touching crypto. I'm like, cool, there's other ways to do it. So it's just neat to like talk about the different ways to build wealth. And I'm always amazed that the people are like, I never thought about that, because it's not talked about. It's not taught. It's not exposed.
Yeah, it's really not. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast is I love your approach to it. Everyone, all of you listening, I'm very big on there is no prescriptive one way to do things. There is the way that's right for you. And that's what I love so much about your approach to things, is helping people discover what is the right way for them, which I think ultimately is the way people are going to actually do anyway, because someone tells you to do something that you're like, yeah, I guess so. I feel like you're not going to get the same results from it because you're not bought into it, and it's not going to feel aligned in the same way.
No, and you're going to like dread, you're going to dread opening your app to look at it. Or, and I like to pick on Tesla because obviously Elon's such a polarizing figure. But like, if you don't want to invest in Tesla and support Elon, like there's hundreds of other companies. There's people who are like, I want to invest in green companies. I want to invest in this way. And nowadays with technology, there's all these like index funds to allow you to invest like in green companies across the board, or minerals, or, and so the tech today has brought a lot of that traditional investing and made it a little bit more simplified, if you will. And like we could do it in our apps on an app on our phone, but you should be excited to check your app. Like one of my favorite stories is one of my first investments was the Tiffany stock. And I was my senior year at college, and I needed a project. I needed to do like an analysis of a publicly traded company, and and everybody picked all the good ones like Monsanto and Coca-Cola and all the big obvious ones. And I was the last to pick. I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, oh, Tiffany's publicly traded. So I had to request the booklet, their financial booklet that they produce. And it's the most beautiful book. It comes in, it looks like a Tiffany cover, the blue box, and every 5th page is a Tiffany jewelry. And I'm like, well, this is fun. But through that project, I learned that it was severely undervalued at that time. So I bought stock myself. I was with my grandpa liked to stock trade. So he got some stock and we were doing it together, which was fun to like have that family relation. But I left that stock in there for several years. And then when it came time, it was actually the down payment for my first house. Was that stock purchase that I made. But it still brings me joy. Like I did it with my grandpa for a graduation gift. My grandparents got me like a little Tiffany's bracelet because we had so much fun doing it together. And it was just, it was investing, and I made money and I did good, right? It became a down payment, but there was so much more joy to it than just pushing buttons on an app and watching it. It had that fun, special meaning. And I think that's what investing should be like. And not all investing is going to be that way, right? Like the S&P 500 index fund, it's a wise, good investment, like have some money in it. No, it's not going to bring you the same amount of joy of like, I bought a whiskey barrel and it's aging. Or, like there's so many cool things out there. It's just a great way to invest and do it in a way that aligns with you.
Yeah, I love that so much. And there's so many different rabbit holes I want to go down here. But what I want to do first is there something you talk about that I want to pivot the conversation to, because I think it's so good to anchor in when we start to think about wealth. And that is how surprised some people are when they sell their business. So if you are thinking of or building towards selling your business one day, and you are planning to rely on the sale of that business for things, can you kind of walk us through where people can sometimes get surprised and disappointed in that?
Well, I think the first surprise, it's odds are you're not going to sell your business. Like when you look at all businesses, most of them close down because the owners get sick and tired of running them. And you can think back to like your mom and pop shops on Main Street. You can think back to online people that are like, I'm over it. Like I'm closing it down. I'm out. So I think the first ugly truth of some of this is your business probably won't sell. And then secondly, if it does sell, chances are it's not for life-changing money. Yeah, I had a 6-figure exit out of my property management company. That's great. Was it life-changing? No. Like, do I get extra money every month? Yes, it's great. Like, I'm not knocking it, but the reality is it's not life-changing money. I didn't get a $29 billion buyout from private equity. And I think too, whenever people talk about selling, right, there's you can sell to, say, the next generation. If you want to, you built this business and you want to pass it to that next generation, there's a sell process that happens. Obviously, your heirs aren't going to be paying you exorbitant funds for this company. Or, like the only time you get money like that is essentially private equity or companies like that. And then you lose control of it. And a lot of business owners also have that hard time internally, quote unquote, selling out. I mean, they can take their check and run, don't get me wrong. But we all work really hard on our businesses. It's our babies. So I think realizing that when you go into this is so important, and planning that throughout your business time, which means investing, means building your own retirement funds, right? No one's contributing to your 401k. No one's setting you up for a match unless you're doing that. Unless you're doing the traditional retirements, 401k, simple IRAs, there's so many of them. And then the personal ones, like, are you buying real estate? Are you investing extra at an account? Are you buying whiskey barrels? Are you collecting artwork or classic cars? There's so many different ways to invest. And if you know what you're doing, they will all make money. Do I think buying whiskey barrels, if you don't know what you're doing, is the right answer? No. Or classic cars or art, it's obviously a niche market. But once you know and it aligns with you and your values, like, you can make money doing anything. You can make money, reselling garage finds on eBay. It's just pick your poison to do it. And I think that, and it doesn't happen overnight, right? Like, you don't get to go sell your business and then say, oh, shoot, if I sell my business, I don't have any more income and I don't have any investments. Like, this stuff takes years of strategic, steady building. That's not sexy. It's not exciting. Like, it's just those responsible moves. And most of it's automated, right? Let's set it and forget it. Let's do this, or let's buy one property a year, or whatever, your strategy is. But it takes the effort, and you've got to plan. Like, you got to start today for that 5, 10, 15, 20 year exit, or whatever, whatever aligns with your strategy, because it will come. You will want to stop working, I promise. And knowing what to do, or having the financial ability to do so and to do it on your own terms, is key.
Yeah, it really is. And now can we go through maybe a few different scenarios? So for that person who is that forward thinker,
Mm-hmm.
and they are being really strategic, and so they have a little bit more of a timeline to play with.
Yep.
What would you recommend? And for that person that's having their blank moment and realizing, I should have done this a long time ago, and I'm a little close to when I should have something. Like, is there a different approach and strategies that you would recommend?
I think time is your best friend, right? So the more time you have, the more time you allow, like, compounding interest, essentially, like, the better off you are. So time is your best friend. And then the next piece is going to be the amount of money, right? So if you have 20 years, you're just starting, you're like, I'm way early in the game. I mean, I tell, like, the college graduates, I'm like, open yourself a retirement account and just $100 a month. Like, just start that muscle action of just investing. Now, if you're in a business, what I really like about business owners is the opportunities for tax games, right? There's a tax code. We all have the same tax code, but how we play it is different, right? The professionals you work with on your CPA and your financial advisors or other people, like, how you play it is different. So I always encourage people to make sure you are aligned with your professionals also, because some people can leave money on the table. And if you're okay with that, then you're okay with that, but just be aware. But, like setting up simple IRAs and matching simple IRAs. You can do it for yourself. You can do it for your employees. It's a nice little benefit. It's for small businesses. It's an easy way to do it. And it's a business expense, right? So now you're decreasing your taxable business income. You're shifting that money out into retirement accounts for you, for your employees. And it's just a different way to move money. Now, I am not an accountant. I am not a lawyer. I am not licensed in financial advising. So this is, just consulting and looking at things a different way. So if these are things you want to do, obviously, like, let's find you the right licensed person to help you with this. But so much of this is asking the right question. And if you don't know and nobody brings it up to you, how do you even know, what to start working on or where to start pulling at the strings to see what comes loose of building this? And I think that's a huge part too, is like you said, like, how do you start? Like, where do you even start? So with that, starting traditional IRA type Roth IRA is better, because obviously a Roth grows tax-free. Traditional, you get the tax deduction today, but when you get taxed when you pull out. And kind of the theory behind it is you're going to be old and in a lower tax bracket. Well, I'm going to be old and I don't want to be in a lower tax bracket than I am today. I want to be old and rich. Like I want to be living my best life. So I would rather pay the taxes today, that a tax rate I don't know what the tax rate's going to be like in the future. So I'd rather invest it in like a Roth account and pull it out tax-free on the other end. So that's a strategy. But I have both, because there's some years that are a really big income year. And I'm like, oh, let's put this in the traditional because I want to reduce my taxable income this year. And then in a year that's not so good, I will roll it over to the Roth and then be able to absorb that tax hit later. So there's different layers of strategy to this that you have to work with your tax professional, your investment advisor to kind of like build it up. But there's so many people who don't bring any of this up. And that's what's so frustrating. And then the other big piece that I talk, like real estate. So when we're going to say you want to buy a $100,000 house, and I know it's not realistic for a lot of places, but it's a nice, easy number to play with. So, right, if you have $10,000, you can use that as a down payment on a $100,000 asset. If you have $10,000 and you put $10,000 into stocks, you get $10,000 worth of stocks. But if you have a $10,000 check, you can get a $100,000 asset. And in 10 years down the road, that $100,000 asset is now worth $200,000. And yes, you've been paying mortgages and you've been paying interest and you have other, obviously money into it. But you basically came out of pocket $10,000 up front to get a $200,000 asset. Whereas on stocks, you had $10,000 and they might be worth $30,000 if they tripled in value over the next 10 years, right? It's like that real estate and that appreciation is where a lot of people make that big money. That's where the real wealth is made. That's where the real billionaires play with their money. They rent their house, they invest in property, they invest in assets. It's, all the Carnegies and all the big names. I mean, the royal family in England is all real estate backed. Their royal fund is all real estate across the country. So I think they own part of Times Square as well. So like, there's just so many plays to it on the real estate side to kind of like give you that extra leverage. And then on the tax side, you get depreciation. And I think with businesses, and as we've gone to online businesses, we don't have those brick and mortar businesses that we used to, like the mom and pop Main Street. So at least in those businesses, you owned your storefront, you had your building, so you at least had the asset and you got the depreciation from that and you got those tax gains. But now we have these million businesses run from our laptop. And there's no assets being built in that. And that's what's really hurting people in the long run is that what do you have to show for it? Because cash in the bank depreciates. You've got inflation going on. You've got everything else. Like you're not earning any interest in your savings account. Like you've got to do something with it.
So it's fascinating because I remember when I was 24, I bought a condominium. And I remember all my friends thinking I had like lost my mind. They were still living the like party life. There were like 4 of them in a rental. And here I went off and I bought my first condo. And I remember it cost me $50,000 at the time. And now I'm like, where are the $50,000 condos? Because I would buy all of them. But of course, back then, that was $1 million to me. Like I could barely pay the rent. I had to get a second job waitressing, like just to pay for it. But I was like, I'm doing this. I'm building up an asset. And I remember having that condo allowed me to buy my car with no car payment because it had appreciated so much. It allowed me to then put a really nice down payment on my house. Mm-hmm. And I just sold my house a week ago at the time I recorded this. And that gave me a huge amount of money in the bank to help with this big transition of my life to a new city, a new place, a new everything. Literally, it's all new. And I just think about that and I'm like, I could have rented, I could have done all of these other things. And I think there's pros and cons, but it was that as just, even for me, just a personally life-changing asset, not even doing it through the lens of wealth. Right. And then thinking about then taking that and doing that as an actual wealth building strategy, the type of impact that must be able to make.
Yes. And that's, especially with real estate, I call it like the snowball. Anybody that's buying rentals or collecting rentals, I tell people the first 5 units are your hardest. Like when you have one rental and you have one vacancy, like it sucks. And there's no sugarcoating that. Like it sucks. Or if you have one bad tenant move out and you've got to remodel, like it sucks. Like I won't lie to you. But once you have like that cross that 5 point, you've got 4 to kind of help float the oh shit factor, for lack of a better professional terminology there, of in a vacancy or a bad tenant or whatnot. So, but then that's when that snowball really kicks up. So all of a sudden you're building this equity and you've got, things. So then you go get a line of credit and then you use that line of credit to put down payment on one or say maybe two more properties. And then you go and you remortgage one and you pull out another, $100,000 of equity and you buy two more properties. So then these ones at the beginning start, for every one, you're buying two more and then give it another couple of years and you kind of rinse, repeat, and then you go get two more. And that's where that like snowball really happens. And then some people are like, okay, I don't want single family because obviously it's easiest. That's the easiest, lowest point of entry on real estate is a single family home. It's down the street. You can go look at it. It's the condo. It's, like a single piece. It's tangible. It's easy. Then the next level is those multifamilies or duplexes or, 8-plex, things like that. And then you can start getting into we'll call it the big boys, and I hate all the men because it's always men. There are a few women out there, but, buying the giant apartment complexes. But even with that nowadays, it's called syndicating, but you can invest in real estate with them, with other people, and basically give your money to them. So you're partial owner of a real estate investment, but you're not having to do you're not answering any phone calls about toilets but you still get that K1 where it's giving you the depreciation. You get to write off some of the expenses. You get some of the income, and your proportional ownership of it. And so that's kind of a new cool way as well that people are being able to invest in real estate. And then there's different levels. A lot of them, if you're an accredited investor, which has its own requirements, it's like $100,000 minimum. Well, that's a big ask for a lot of people to come up with $100,000 and a big trust factor to like invest in real estate with this person, $100,000. So there's ones that are lower, but a friend and I are actually starting one, and I will keep you posted when it's out. But that has a $5,000 minimum investment because I'm like, I want to be able to bring real estate to quote unquote the normal person to start because it's not so scary. There shouldn't be this fear factor behind it. And so many people, the hardest part is doing it alone because when you go buy that single family residence, you're like your condo, you're in it. You had to figure it out. There was no team to help you on that. And so I think opening that up to allow people to invest with their friends or doing things you love with others makes it a lot more fun.
Well, even the house that I currently am in Austin, I'm renting. And this was a house that the family had lived in forever. I'm the very first renter.
Oh.
And they got a rental agency. So I'm actually working through an agency, not the family. I've never talked to them. And so that sounds appealing to me. Like if I didn't have to rent something myself and I could hire someone else to take care of it, I'd buy all of the properties.
Well, good news, Krista. We can go buy property. I got a plan for you.
Yes. But is that what you recommend for people, or do you find it makes more sense for people to take some of that on themselves when they're getting started?
Honestly, I really recommend a property manager. It takes a special person to deal with. I mean, so I was a property manager, like I said, for 10 years. Like you're dealing with people's homes, their shelter, and you're dealing with their money. Those are probably the two most personable, fiery topics you could deal with somebody when their home isn't working right or their money. And so you get excuses. Grandma died. I can't pay my rent. This is backed up. You suck. All of the things that go on with that. So it takes a special person to put up with that and be okay with dealing with that level of conflict. Having those conversations of like, hey, I'm sorry, I know you really wanted to apply and I really like you. However, your credit score is terrible and you have a judgment from your last landlord, so I'm not going to rent to you. You're right. Like there's a lot of conflict. So if you're not that person, I would 100% say recommend a property manager. They are well worth their money. Like you said, you're not like, can you imagine the emotional, like the family's like, oh my God, Krista did this. Oh, that was little Susie's bedroom. She grew up in there. Like there's so much of that emotion that you're like, just don't. Just hire a property manager, let them handle it, and just kind of like take the check when it comes in and count your blessings.
Yep. I like that approach because there's no world in which I would want to be a landlord. And I think that a lot of people don't make that initial decision to invest in property because I think there's sometimes this fear that they would have to be. So I'm so happy that you walked through all of that.
Well, and I think that's it. Like there's so much to it that you don't have to do it on your own. And that's also like the role I play in my consulting is we can find the right people and we can do it together, And that's the hardest thing is everyone's like, I don't want to take this on. I don't want to deal with it because it's hard and lonely. And most of us don't have friends. Just like you said, you're the only one who bought and everybody else is making fun of you and criticizing you. It's like when we start doing these personal investment things and like, especially as women, particularly, like I don't call up my friends and be like, oh my God, do you hear how low Bitcoin was today? Although I'm watching it and there's probably friends who would appreciate knowing that, it's just not part of our conversation. So when you show up to your like coffee time or tea or cocktails or whatever, and you're like, oh my God, my tenant did XYZ, everybody just looks at you like you've got, antlers on your head. You're just like, never mind. It's just not part of normal conversation, especially for women currently. I'd love to change that. But, the guys will go have those conversations and the guys will do a lot of that. But especially as women, we're not there yet and having those money talks as a normal part of our life.
Yeah, I am very much a big believer in normalizing that. And I love the work that you're doing around that. And so for anyone listening who maybe hasn't gone down this path yet, maybe they've been curious about building wealth, or maybe they've done a little, but they might be wrestling with, well, when do I know what money to take out of my business to invest in wealth? When do I know when I'm ready to do that? How do you know the right timing of things? And I know it has some factor to do with risk tolerance, but also like what makes sense there?
Again, it's personal, right? So one, there's never the right time, right? Because especially in your business, there's always more things you could spend your money on, right? There's always more business expenses, and it's Parkinson's law. It'll take the time, it takes the space to fill like whatever you give it. So with investing, I obviously make sure you can make payroll, make sure you can pay your bills, but start to be diligent. And I personally would keep myself a little tight. And I started transferring $1,000 a month from my business account into my business savings account just to get it out of my business operating account, because when it's in the operating account, it gets fair game for everything else, right? So I'd get it at least in the savings account on a separate account. And then from there, in my business savings, it was kind of set aside. And then it gave me the opportunity as the owner, okay, like I'm going to take this extra owner draw. And obviously that has tax consequences. So, and depending on how you're set up, be aware of that. And then take that and then put it into, say, my investment account, or use that as a down payment on a rental for myself that I wanted to buy personally. So there's different ways. And if you have business partners or, there's always extenuating circumstances. But I personally keep myself a little tight, because if I take it out of my business operating account, I will find a way to make more money, to make that extra sell, to, give me that cushion I need. And for me, it's a little bit of a motivating factor. But I think all of our businesses, if we're making money, you can afford to start moving some money around. And part of it's making sure you're paying yourself. A lot of business owners pay themselves the bare minimum just to keep it. Give yourself a little bit of a pay raise and transfer that into your savings and transfer that into your investment account. So there's different strategies there, but I will promise you, if you are running a business and you're, have really any level of success, there is some money that you can start moving towards investing. And even if it's $10 a month, $10 a week, $100 a month, whatever it is, just half the battle setting it up. What account do I want to invest in? Do I want to do E-Trade or Charles Schwab, or do I want Robinhood? Or, that decision's hard. And then I got to link my bank account. So, just going through and setting that stuff up is 90% of the battle. And then starting that transfer and have it automated. And you're like, oh, well, this is kind of fun. I'm going to up it to $200 a month or $300 a month or $1,000, whatever it is. But just making sure that you have some sort of plan to get it in there. Because once it's in there, it'll work. And it's funny is there's a lot of investors who fight me on that, if you will, because they're like, I don't want to lose control of my money. And I'm like, I don't blame you. I don't either. Because when you put it, especially when you put it into a retirement account, it's locked till you're 65. So it's interesting too. And some of this is pay attention to your own reactions. Be aware of the stories that are coming up in your own head about I don't want to put that in there because I don't want to lose control of my money. Okay, that's cool. I hear you. And then let's put it in a regular investing account. Let's buy the rental or, whatever the case is. There's different ways to do things that you can still I have a real estate backed CD essentially. So it's a 6 month commitment of your money and it's 7.5% interest, which I don't know anywhere else that's paying you 7.5% interest. And it's only a 6-month commitment and it's $500 minimum. I'm like, you can do this for 6 months. You can put 500, 1,000, 10,000, whatever it is, and see how you like it. And that's the thing too. Like, none of this is really permanent stuff. It's just building and practicing and like what works and having faith in the long run, because we are obviously in for wild times economically right now. So things are going to go up, things are going to go down. You're going to be like, this was brilliant. You're like, I was an idiot. And knowing to just ride that wave, like it's just a wave. Things go up, things go down. Real estate's cyclical, stocks are cyclical. Like, it'll come back around.
So true. So tell us a little bit more. Tell the listeners where they can find you. Tell them kind of a little bit about how you work and what you do.
So you can find me essentially on all the socials, Amelia Misenheimer or Amelia G. Misenheimer on like Instagram, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Substack. I've got a YouTube channel coming out soon. We're working on that. And I typically work with clients one-on-one just because this is such a personal journey. And we start by looking at where you're at currently, where you're at financially now, and then where you want to be. And one of the big lessons that happened for me is I started working with a financial advisor, and I told them where I wanted to be and when I wanted to retire. And they were like, you need to start saving $70,000 a year. And I was like, I don't make $70,000 a year. Like, how am I going to save like, this isn't going to work. But they didn't take into consideration my real estate investments or any of the other alternative investments that I had that were producing income and cash flow to me. And I'm like, well, this is stupid. This isn't even, taking the whole picture. So working with clients, like, we look at all the different pieces and how, okay, we can get this income coming from this and this income. And that's the part that's missing in the traditional financial investment planning world. So working with people on creating their own personal strategy plan. And usually there's more work up front, right? We're getting everything set up. We're getting those automated transfers set. We're, getting a plan. And then it's kind of a set it and forget it type. All right, let's check in 6 months and see how it's going. Let's check in 12 months. Do we want to make any adjustments? How's everything feeling? You had a really good year. What kind of tax planning is going to happen? Because as a business owner, you have a lot of levers to pull with tax planning, investing, moving money, taking draws, not taking draws. There's a lot of strategy that goes into it that I think gets left on the table because business owners are so busy running their business and chasing that revenue and getting that next sell and all of those pieces.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. It's if you think about the work that I do with people, I'm trying so hard to elevate the founder out of the daily just weeds of everything. And when they're in that place, it's so hard to even think about wealth. It's so hard to think about so much of this because there's so many demands on their time. They're being pulled in 1,000 directions. There's, all of the tabs are open.
Yep.
And I think this just is one of those incentives, if you will, for, again, these are the things that sometimes you don't even have the space to realize you're missing out on when you're so stuck in the middle of everything. So,
yeah. And having somebody to kind of do the brain work for you, right? Because even if it is setting it up with like an Edward Jones person or whatever the case is, like just you got to do something.
Mm-hmm. But I'd recommend calling Amelia, just saying.
I agree. I agree. We're going to have much more fun.
All right. So there's a question I ask everybody, and I'm super curious to hear what you're going to say. In your business, how do you scale smarter and keep things lean?
That's a great question because I'm in the middle of that right now, actually. I'm a little feisty about it too. I've really gotten mad at the tech bloat of my business. And I'm like looking at all the subscriptions I'm paying and all of this stuff. I'm like, I'm not even using most of this. So I've really taken the personal reflection on mine. Like, what am I really using? What do I want my processes to look like? And rebuilding my processes to be leaner and meaner and getting rid of, hundreds of dollars every month of tech bloat that I'm not using to really streamline my business processes and like clarity and like, okay, what is my most efficient use of time? So I am internally right now really looking at my processes, my systems, and like, what am I really using to communicate with my clients and advertise and whatnot, and not get rid of everything else because I'm really sick and tired of paying for it. It's more money I could be investing elsewhere.
Exactly. And I am all about that. All right. So I feel like we could talk for days, but we're going to wrap this up. So kind of any final tips for people as either they're making this transition to really start focusing on wealth or maybe deepening what they're already doing and branching into some new strategies?
Be clear on why you're investing. Like, what are you doing? Is this, and you don't have to have a perfect answer, but is this for the next generation? Are you called, for philanthropy and you want to leave behind, for school or cause or whatnot? And I think tapping into that greater why of why you're doing this is really important for investing. And it's motivating because, as we all know, as business people, like, times get hard. So knowing that kind of heartstring pull of why you're doing this is so important to last the highs and the lows and the strategy that goes on with it.
Amazing. Amelia, thank you so much. I hope all of you listening got as much out of this conversation as I did. You will find the links to find Amelia in all of the places in the show notes, and we will see you again next week.
Thank you so much, Krista, for having me. It was great.
If you are a visionary founder ready to get yourself out of the day-to-day operations of your business and scale in a much more simple, sustainable way, I have just the thing. Register to join me for my Scale Simpler workshop at scalesimpler.com. In it, I break down the hidden barriers that keep you trapped in the day-to-day of your business and what to do to finally extract yourself once and for all so things do not keep coming back onto your plate. And if you're someone who partners with founders as their right-hand advisor, consultant, or fractional, I invite you to explore our scaling certification and licensing programs at strategicopsinstitute.com.